May find the following disturbing. Discretion is advised.
Welcome, everyone, to another episode of GTF. Gabriel Talks Football. My name is Aldo Gandia, and Week 7 for the Chicago Bears anyway starts right now with this show. Let me bring in Greg. Greg, how are you, my friend?
I'm doing good. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. I'm especially happy today because we've got a very special guest, somebody that you used to brush shoulders with in the weight room on the way to the weight room, and this guy was was working on the guns, right?
That's all the time. No, I'll tell you one thing about Thomas Jones, consummate pro.
Yeah.
If that's the one thing that sticks out. You know, he's a pro's pro.
Yeah, and all the players that we've talked to over the years have nothing but great things to say, and he's got this media empire that he's working on, and there he is right now. Thomas Q. Jones, as he's known in the entertainment world. As a football player, he was just Thomas Jones. Now he's Thomas Q. Jones. Did you change your name because of a SAG-AFTRA thing? Somebody else had that name?
No, I actually changed it because once I became an actor and a producer, I wanted to kind of distinguish Thomas Q. Jones, the actor, producer, entrepreneur, from Thomas Jones, the NFL player. And so the Q is it's my middle initial, which is my middle name is Quinn. So Thomas Q. Jones, it just kind of gives me a different brand, you know, outside of Thomas Jones, football player, as opposed to what I'm doing now.
Very cool.
Thomas, how did you get involved in entertainment business after your football life was over?
Retired in 2012, and I was really just kind of lost, to be honest. I didn't have anything that I was really ambitious or passionate about outside of football. You know, and it's very, very difficult, you know, when you play a sport like that for that long, 12 years. I mean, it's a lot of time and effort and you know, a lot that you're putting into it. And so you don't really have time to really pursue anything else. But sometimes you don't really think about that until you're out of the league and you're like, whoa, you know, I don't have practice anymore. I don't have games. I don't have training camp. I don't have off-season program. So I was fortunate enough to bump into some really cool people in Miami, and they allowed me to produce a project with them, a TV series. And I also took a small little acting role in it. And one of the actors that I was working with, his name's Clifton Powell, legendary actor. He's been in some really big, huge TV shows and films over the years. He thought that I had some natural talent, and so you know, he suggested I take acting seriously. And you know, I took him up on it. I ended up getting a manager in 2013, and then finding a couple of opportunities, you know, in acting opportunities, and I booked a few roles, and then I decided to take it very seriously in 2014, and I signed with an agency, moved to LA, and then I started off on my journey.
So you're in LA right now?
Well, I actually live in LA and I live in Miami.
Okay.
So I have a place in LA and a place in Miami. I've been in Miami for a long, long time, but I was in LA probably consistently from 2014 up until COVID, and then when COVID hit, you know, everything just you know, changed a little bit, so I was able to come back and forth to Miami. So, yeah.
Do you still have that great car collection?
Yeah, I have a couple of them. You know, I at this point now, you know, I'm more into collecting TV shows and you know, collecting Hollywood projects. So I kind of traded some of those cars in for some Hollywood projects.
Well, you know, it's related to what you Greg just asked you about your post-pro football career. That's sort of the subject, or is the subject of your new Netflix. Actually, it's Amazon Prime series. I'm confusing Lucas Cage, that was on network, and you played Comanche on it. It was a fabulous, fabulous role. You've been in a number of great roles since your retirement. But tell us about the new project with Amazon.
Yeah, so I have a new project that will premiere October 18th on Amazon Prime. It's called Life After. and it's a docu-series that follows 12 former NFL players and our lives post NFL. It dives into some of the struggles some guys have in transitioning. You know, like I mentioned earlier, you know, when you have so many years of the NFL and so much of that in your system, a lot of guys have a hard time transitioning and finding something else that they're ambitious about, or finding something else that they feel that they can be as successful in. And so this docu series, it follows 12 different NFL players. All of them have different post football journeys. So you get to dive into what that looks like when it's these 12 guys.
You got Spice Adams involved in that?
Yeah.
Yeah, Spice Adams is one of the 12 players. His story is incredible. Obviously going from the NFL, and now he's a huge social media sensation and personality. And it's funny because a lot of these guys, they have big personalities. They're already wired to be great at anything that they touch. But football is such a very specific job, and it's so time consuming and so intense that you don't, if you focus on your post career while you're playing in the NFL, you're going to be in your post career fairly quickly. So you have to give the NFL as much of your time as possible. But when you see these guys like Spice and some of the other guys that are part of this series, you can just tell that from their personalities that they just have what it took to be successful in anything outside of football.
You know what I find amazing is that guys like yourself and with Spice. Now, Spice, used to be a neighbor of mine, lived across the street and down a little bit, and how they've grown since they've got out of football, and to use their personality and their wherewithal to grow in another field, I just think is really amazing. But it says a lot about you guys as people.
Yeah, definitely. It says a lot about who we are as people, and also what the NFL teaches us. Just all the basic principles that you need for success. Just hard work, dedication, discipline. All of us as NFL players, we have that in us naturally, and so anything we pursue, we're going to apply those same characteristics. It's just finding what we're ambitious and passionate about. You have guys like Spice Adams, who is a social media personality, but then you'll have a guy like Justin Forsett, who actually created a hygiene product while he was in the NFL. The idea came to him off of a basic joke that we always have in the locker room. If a guy decides to not take a shower right after practice, he decides to take a shower at home. In the locker room, we call that he took a shower pill. So he used that joke and he turned it into a multi-million-dollar company. So we've got some really, really intelligent guys, smart guys, and also this series is hopefully an effort to debunk some of the stereotypes about NFL players and us being one-dimensional and only being able to do one thing, because there's so many of us that are super talented.
Thomas, if I can butt in and ask this question, there is a level of physicality as a professional football player that is unlike any other job that I can think of. And so once you retire, is there a void in terms of, wow, I need to hit something? And how do players replace that? Is it just in the gym, or do you have to go through some kind of mental transformation that all of that hitting is now past in my life?
Yeah, that's a great point. A lot of guys have a hard time separating themselves from the physical element of the NFL, the violence of the NFL. It's just like anything else. If it becomes your norm, then that's what you're going to be used to doing. Unfortunately, when you retire, you can't just punch a guy in the face over a parking spot. You're going to go to jail. But in the NFL, if a guy shoves you in the back, you can turn around and punch him in the face. It's a 15-yard penalty. It's within the world of our job, and so it is a psychological shift that has to be made once you retire. Acting helped me. It became therapeutic for me because it gave me an opportunity to take on something that's challenging emotionally. It gave me an opportunity to be around different people with different perspectives. The locker room is a very unique place. The conversations, the energy, it's a very unique place to be, and that energy just doesn't die when you retire. it's still there because that's what you've been used to, especially if you're used to playing in the NFL for, a number of years. So yeah, a lot of guys have to talk to people. It's good. I would suggest getting therapy, seeing therapists, finding someone that you can talk to, that you can actually unload all this stuff. And that way, as you move forward, at least, you've done the best you can psychologically to put yourself in a new space.
Well, correct me if I'm wrong, Thomas, because I look at it this way. And, I played football until I was 31 years old. Then I got involved in scouting and front office work. But it's really about the void is a competitive void. We stop playing the game, and then all of a sudden that you've been involved in a competitive atmosphere most of your life. So now you need something new to replace that competitive atmosphere. And it's just all you did is transfer that to a new area and acting. And now you're competitive and trying to be the best you can be in that new chosen field. Is that a correct way of saying it?
Yes, that's exactly what it is. It's that competitive spirit. I mean, we're playing for Super Bowls and championships and contracts and Pro Bowls and all pro selections. So there's always something to fight for and to compete for in the NFL. You're competing for your job. One injury could cost you your career. Someone comes in and takes your job and you get released and now you don't get picked up again. So the stakes are always high as an NFL player. And for me, acting was something that was right up my alley because it is very competitive. The odds of you making it in this business are very slim. You have to be disciplined to end up being successful. You have to be hardworking. You have to be creative. And those are all the things that I use to be successful in football. So for me, that made it more of a seamless transition. I was fortunate enough to find acting, but unfortunately, a lot of guys don't find something like that.
Thomas, during your career, you had ups and downs. When you were first drafted into the league, I actually remember hearing the word bust associated with Thomas Jones. And here in Chicago, Justin Fields has gotten off to a slow start to his professional career. He hasn't lived up to the expectation of some analysts and some fans and so forth. And we're actually starting to hear bust. I mean, I was on social media today, and Justin Fields can't do this, it can't do that, and so forth. What if you had an opportunity to talk to Justin Fields? What would you say to him about all of that noise?
I would say don't listen to it. I mean, listen. Every person is different. Certain people will use that as motivation, and then for other people, it could just continue to destroy their confidence. And I don't know him personally. I don't know the type of person he is or the type of motivation he needs to be successful. But personally, when I was in Arizona, I knew I wasn't a bust. I knew that I had the talent to be successful at that level. I just knew that I was going through a tough time and I was having to adjust. And I was also in a place that I didn't feel necessarily was best fit for me. So, what I did was I just blocked it out. I understood it was around me because, you're the 7th overall pick and, you have 370 yards your rookie year. People are going to be down on you. But I never gave up on myself. I never gave up on my ability. I realized I was good enough to make it here. I'm good enough to stay here. And so I continued to fight and continue to work hard. And I was also accountable, for my issues and things that I needed to work on. When I came out in the draft, I was about 212, 215. And after training camp, by the time we get to the regular season, I was 210, 209. That to me, that just wasn't big enough to be a 25, 30 carry a game back. So I needed to put on weight. So I dedicated myself to the weight room, got a nutritionist, trainer. I put on 20 pounds because that was something I needed to do to be able to, withstand a 16-game season. And that's why, I think it's important for him to watch his own film, see what he can do better, continue to work, and block out the noise, because I was in Arizona, which is a smaller market. But Chicago is a bigger situation for a 21-year-old kid to be under that amount of pressure. So I was telling him to block it out and just continue to believe in the same things that allowed him to be drafted at that pick.
Greg, you got another one for him?
Well, he's settled out, and I really appreciate a lot of things that he said. And the one thing that hit me right when he said, "Well, I knew I had to get bigger, I had to get stronger, I had to put on weight," but you did it the right way. And I don't know if Rusty had anything to do with it, because you might have. I don't remember what your weight was when you came to us, but it's putting on good weight. It's putting on muscle weight and not fat weight. And the one thing I remember about you when you were with us here in Chicago is that you were very, frame wise, a very solid frame. You had good weight. You had low percentage of body fat. So the weight you carried was good weight. You got bigger, but you got bigger in the right way.
Yeah. I mean, in Arizona, after my rookie year, I had broken ribs, and the Arizona trainers misdiagnosed me. So I had a lot of things that I was dealing with psychologically, and so I had to regroup in the off season, and I ended up getting another trainer, nutritionist, and so I put on about 10, 15 pounds after my first year. So by the time I got to Chicago, I was already at 230, 235. That's where I was comfortable playing. But I was very disciplined. I was just so disciplined with my diet. I didn't even eat ketchup. I didn't even eat mustard. Like I became obsessed with being successful. I became obsessed with regaining, the respect that I had earned throughout my entire football career, high school and college. I was obsessed with being great, and regardless of whatever I needed to do, I was going to do whatever I needed to do to get back there. And so it starts mentally, even for Justin, it's a mental thing. You're in Chicago, you're in the curse of Chicago is it's probably the best city to play NFL football, the best city. But on the flip side, if you're not playing well, you probably wish you weren't there. But that's also why we're getting paid. That comes with the job description. That's part of it. It's high stakes at all times. So I wish the kid the best. I think they have a good nucleus of players. It just feels like they haven't been able to put it all together. But you see some of these teams like the Jets, and I don't watch much football. I see a lot on social media mostly. But teams like the Jets and the Giants, who people didn't think they were going to be much this year, and then all of a sudden now they're winning teams, and that's the NFL, though. That's the NFL. It's all about every. What is that movie? Any Given Sunday.
Mm-hmm.
It's literally Any Given Sunday. You never know what team is going to show up. If you don't show up, you're not going to win. It doesn't matter who you're playing. It's still the best football players in the world on each team, and it's about gelling at the right time, having some luck, and being as injury free as possible. So. Who knows? The season's not over yet. Justin and the team.
It's one third through the season. We got a long way to go.
But as players, we're not. We're not. Well, I know as a player, I wasn't thinking we don't ever have a chance. Obviously, there's always something to play for. Not just your check, but your pride and your integrity as a football player. So, yeah, I think if they can just keep working hard. And figuring out what their real issues are, because it's usually when you're losing like that, it's the simple things, it's the little things, it's not the big things. All these guys are capable of making plays. They're capable of playing football. They wouldn't have been drafted. They wouldn't have been scouted and be given an opportunity. It's the small things that they're not doing right.
Thomas, this is your third visit to the barroom, and we really appreciate each and every one of your visits. Your very first visit, you were with us for over an hour. One of the stories you recalled was your Super Bowl experience. And I'll just never forget the hair stood up on my arms when you recalled the frustration and the disappointment and recalled what happened in game. And after that, so hundreds and hundreds of fans told me, wow, I didn't know that about Thomas. It's like more fans who loved you even more because of the emotional way you recalled that story. And since then, people have come to me and said, can I ask Thomas one more question about the Super Bowl, if you have him on again and so forth? So Dan Aguirre, one of the show co-hosts here, who is also in love with you, has this question for you.
Jones, sort of local to you. I was an hour away from Big Stone Gap, Virginia, and the Powell Valley Vikings. I bought your jersey the week 2/04 when you went to Green Bay and went up there and beat the Packers. So I customized a white T. Jones jersey. And wouldn't you know it, a Monday, Daryl Jones is cut. So I get the T. Jones jersey, and next week, yours just says Jones. So my jersey's obsolete before I even get it. But anyway, but something I've always had a theory on. And look, I loved Rex Grossman. I'm not trying to get you to besmirch him in any way, but it seemed like he didn't have it at Super Bowl 41. Maybe it was the rain, but if Lovey inserts Brian Greasy at some point in the second half, could that have been the difference and you all would be wearing rings here in 2022 for Super Bowl 41 champions?
I mean, I think there's a lot of theories around that game. I think there always will be a lot of theories around that game. I think the Super Bowl is the biggest single game on the planet. So for some people, they're either gonna sink or swim. I mean, that's kind of a cliche we use in football. And I personally think that obviously we lost that game as a team. There's something that all of us could have done better to win that Super Bowl. I could have maybe made better reads on certain plays. Receivers could have run better routes. We could have not turned the ball over, obviously. Defense, we could have had some mental errors. I mean, special teams. I mean, we fumbled a kickoff return. I mean, there's a lot of reasons why we lost. But in regards to just Rex, I don't know if inserting Brian Greasy or inserting Kyle Orton would have changed anything. I can't say. But I do think that the Super Bowl might have been too big for Rex on that day. I think that was just one of those the game's too big for me days for Rex. He did the best that he could. But I do think, just as I reminisce on the game and just some of the conversations I would have on the sidelines and just kind of just the energy, because there were opportunities for him to run, there were opportunities for him to check the ball down, there were opportunities for him to throw the ball away. But just speaking in particular to specifically about Rex, I do think that the Super Bowl was just a little bit too big that day. And that's not a knock on him. He's an incredible guy. I love playing with Rex. He had some huge games for us and came through for us in so many different ways. But, I mean, everyone's going to analyze that game. It's the Super Bowl. I'm not any different than anyone else. I'm a football player. I was on the team, but it's the Super Bowl. So we're all going to see it as equally important, the players and the fans. So I don't know if Brian Greasy would have changed anything, but I definitely think that the game was too big for Rex that day.
Thomas, I've been involved in four. Three of the games were with the Giants before I came to the Bears. We won two, and then I've lost the last two I've been in, the 2001 Super Bowl, the Giants against Baltimore, and then the Super Bowl with us, and where we lost to the Colts. And the one thing I've learned is everything's got to click. And if it doesn't, things can go sour. I mean, both teams are in the Super Bowl for a reason. They're good teams. And you get there, part of it's luck, part of it's good play. But if things don't click exactly the way you want them to, it can go south.
Yeah. There's minimal room for error in those type of games, especially the Super Bowl, because everyone is their own point, and we had way too many turnovers, and we still had a chance. Still, we're driving. To this day, I thought we were going to come back. It's 22-17. We're driving. I'm like, we're going to come back and we're going to win this in heroic fashion. And unfortunately, we didn't. And like I said, everyone has to take blame in that loss. There was something that each of us could have done better to help us win. But there are key positions that have to perform a certain way for you to have some sort of success. And I just don't think we got that day in particular.
Thomas, I ran into Alex Brown and shared with him some of the stories you shared on our podcast. And he said, you know what? I love Thomas Jones. He's my brother, but he's got some of that wrong. It was on the defense. We screwed up that game. We let Joseph Adai run all over us. We should have stopped them. We knew what they were coming with. We couldn't stop them. He shouldn't place blame on himself or the offense or anyone else. It was our defense. And so I thought that was just a stirring moment, because it really speaks to teamwork, where everyone is being held accountable and always pointing at themselves first and foremost.
Yeah, we all, I mean, we're brothers. That was the closest I had ever been on any team. Those guys, and I was only there for 3 years, but I mean, we were brothers. We were family. You know, I mean, Greg knows he was there. I mean, we were a very close knit, tight group. You know, we believed in each other. We supported each other on good days, bad days. I actually knew Alex Brown. Alex was my roommate at the Walter Camp All-American event in New Haven in college. We were both selected to the Walter Camp All-American team. So I knew Alex then. And so it was fun to get a chance to play with him in Chicago. He's a great defensive end, great football player. But that's what we do. You know, we'll take the blame, you know, and we won't put it on everyone else. You know, I understand where he's coming from. But I would say he's wrong too. You know, we can't turn the ball over, and we have to execute. We have to score when we have the opportunity, and we didn't. It's teamwork, but that's a testament to how much we loved each other and still do to this day.
Well, tomorrow is the big day on Amazon Prime. Life After, the docuseries that your production company has a big role in this, correct, Thomas?
Yes. I have a production company. It's called Midnight Train Productions. And my producing partner, Deji LeRae, and I, it's our company. So we have several projects that we're producing. Life After, this docuseries is one of them. We also have a TV series called Johnson that we're producing, and it's on Bounce TV. We're co-producing it with Cedric the Entertainer and his company. So it's a really cool show. You can actually download an app called Brown Sugar, and you can binge all 10 episodes from season 1. And we just recently finished season 2. So it's a really cool show. It's about 4 guys living in Atlanta and showing just our brotherhood and all the conflicts that we go through in life, from relationships to marriage to, you know, race to, I mean, there's a politics. It's a really provocative show. It's on Bounce TV, but you can download the app Brown Sugar. And you can binge all both episodes, both seasons.
And where can people follow you on social media so they can keep track of your acting career and all the projects you're involved in?
Yeah, you can follow me on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter at Thomas Q. Jones.
Outstanding. And we'll finish this with a statement from Mr. Shorty. He says, "You are one of my top 4 favorite Bears running backs of all time. Thank you for kicking ass for all of us here in Chicago. You are the man, Thomas Q. Jones. You've got to hear it home here at the Bar Room. Anytime you want to stop by and promote something, just let us know, brother."
Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate being on here. So, yeah, I'll definitely reach out next time again.
All righty. Take care now.
Okay.
Thanks, Thomas. Appreciate it.
You got it.
Oops, sorry, I cut him off. Oh, well, I'm not perfect, but he is, man. Oh man. He will post. I mean, he came out with a movie. I should have asked him about this, where he was a MMA fighter. And oh my goodness, is he cut? This was just 2-3 years ago. He came out with a movie. He looks like he was ready to handle the rock 20-30 times in a football game. You have any special recollections of Thomas Jones when he first arrived here? That must have been kind of an odd thing, because you drafted Cedric Benson, right? Tell us.
Yeah, but we had Thomas before that, before Ced came, and in all fairness, Ced was a lovey thing. That's a player that he really wanted. A lot of it was the Texas connection. You know, Lovey's from Texas, Ced was from Texas, and Ced was a all-world icon from the state of Texas as a high school player at the University of Texas. Drafting Ced rubbed a lot of veterans the wrong way, because Thomas Jones was their player. And, you know, so things got off to a sour start for Ced, and the holdout didn't help. And I'll tell you, that guy, they kicked the veterans, the defensive vets kicked the shit out of Ced in practice, you know, and probably more so than any other offensive player. And I think it put a sour taste in Sed's mouth because he was a talented guy. But, the veterans really liked Thomas Jones. And I said at the beginning of the show, and he is the consummate pro. He's a pro's pro. And his career really took off when he came here. And, first he was with Arizona. Things didn't work out there. Then I believe he was with Miami, or it was Tampa, one or the other. And then we traded for him, brought him up, and we did a lot of work on him prior to acquiring him. And we just felt that, in this situation, he could really take off, and his career did. And a great player, and there's nothing he couldn't do well. He could block, he could catch out of the backfield, had great running skills, really good vision, a patient runner, got yards after the catch. There's nothing he couldn't do well, and very, very well liked by his teammates.
Well, that was a great chapter, really, in Chicago Bears history. I followed the team, as I like to say, from the late 1960s. And while I want every year to be a winning year, I know that's just not going to happen. It's not reality. So I look at the game of football almost like movies, and that era of football, when we got to the Super Bowl with Lovie Smith and guys that you drafted, and that whole time period was a great movie with a sad ending, unfortunately, because we didn't win our second Super Bowl, but it was nonetheless a fascinating period to be a Chicago Bears fan. And hopefully
we didn't win it, but I'll tell you, it's a feat getting there.
Yes.
Just to get there is, hey, there's 32 teams in the league. 2 teams are playing on that last Sunday. And really, reality is, at the end of the season, 1 team's happy.
Exactly. And that victory over the Saints at Soldier Field to win the Hallis trophy, I mean, that's one of the best moments of being a Chicago Bears fan. That thrill, that performance by the players, the setting, everything was just tremendous about that. And I hate it when fans says, "Oh, well, then you're a participation trophy kind of guy." No, that has nothing to do with this. To play for the NFC Championship and to win it, that's not winning a participation trophy. That's being the second best team in the National Football League, and I take pride in that. It's better than the team that we have now, which hopefully is going to get better, and time for us to talk about that team. So your immediate thoughts after the game, the heartbreaking loss to who the hell did we play? Now I'm forgetting who we played. The Washington Commanders, and then after some days of thinking about the loss, what are your thoughts now?
Well, I go back to this old adage, and sometimes you emotions right after a game, you got to let them kind of subside. And sometimes I'm glad I do this, more than a day after a game, because it's, you start to look back and you think about it, and it's never a win is never as good as you thought the win was, and a loss is never as bad as it seemed when you went through that loss at the time. So, Aldo, we kind of lost connection here. We there? There we are.
I'm here. Yeah, we froze for a second. Yeah,
it froze up. In fact, I'm looking at the screen now, and I'm kind of frozen on the screen, but you're not. And now we're back. Now we're back. But it's now I'm frozen again. This team
didn't catch it. There you go.
This team is a work in progress, and it just. I've kind of stayed away from social media a little bit since that game. Obviously, I a couple tweets here, a couple tweets there, but not. It's because people overreact. This isn't a Super Bowl team. This is a team that's trying to build a foundation to have sustained success going forward. And I really believe they're doing it the right way. And I listened to Flus the day after the game and listened to his press conference, and there's not one thing he said that I disagreed with. And then there's some people you see on thing, oh, well, we should have hired Brian Dable. Because from my talk when we went through the coaching search, that was the guy I wanted. But I'm not disappointed in Flus. I did my research on that too, and people I talked to have worked with him. He was the right guy. And generally speaking, I favor hiring defensive coaches over offensive coaches, because defensive coaches, first of all, the success I've had, the teams I've been around with, we've had successful teams. We've been led by defensive coaches. Just I think they're a little more grounded, or look at the big picture a little bit better. But Daboll is done a great job, and he's a fellow Buffalonian, so I gotta stick up from there. But he did a great job. He grew up in Buffalo, did a great job for the Bills. He's doing a good job an outstanding job in New York right now, but it's still early in the season. And that he had more tools to work with going there. He had a quarterback in his fourth year who had gone through, a couple different systems, but what Brian does really well is work with quarterbacks. And so he's got them, playing pretty darn good football. And, it wouldn't shock me that we see an extension with Jones in New York in the not too distant future. I don't know what their cap situation is, but I think that they feel that, or Daboll thinks that they can win with him. And it's hard to find the right guy. Justin is getting better. There's things he doesn't do well. They should have won. That game was decided by one play. Velus Jones muffs that punt. If he doesn't muff that punt, the Bears win that game. Now, it would have been an ugly win, but it would have been a win. And you think about it, they're 2-4. They very easily could be 4-2.
Or as Joe said, 5-1.
I don't know, 5-1, but it could easily be 4-2. And to me, it's and I'm repeating myself, but it's about building the foundation for future years, finding out who can play, who can't play. I saw one thing and said this should be the offensive line for next year, and they, different guys are going to be free agents, and one is, Orlando Brown, who's with Kansas City. Kansas City isn't letting Orlando Brown go. and it's just not going to happen. They're going to get a deal done with him. And, some of these young guys on the offensive line here are pretty good players. They need to play. I firmly believe, from watching Braxton Jones play so far for the Bears, he's got what it takes to be a very good left tackle in this league. What he doesn't have is experience. And there's going to be games where he's going to get his ass whipped like he did against Washington. Now, the strongest part of Washington's team is their defensive line. And it showed last Thursday night. And he played against a pretty good guy. And he got schooled, so to speak.
He did.
But and there's weaknesses in his game where he's got to get better. Don't forget, this guy came from an FCS level. This guy wasn't at the high Power 5 place. He was at Southern Utah. Yeah. So you look at his weight room numbers. Yeah, his I think he did 26 reps. That's pretty good. That means he's a 400-pound plus bench press guy. But he still needs to develop his lower body, his core strength, his lower body strength. Needs to get bigger and stronger in those areas. He's got the natural traits. He's got the athletic movement. He's got the feet. He's got the bend. He's got the long arms that you want at the position. There's little things that he needs. So, this is a learning year for him. And some of it's going to go good, some of it's going to go back. His run blocking now is already very, very good.
Mm-hmm.
He's got to learn how to pass protect at the NFL level. And the only way you do that is to play. Okay, now there's other guys and that, you know, we got to change. We got to change out. Mustafa just can't cut the mustard, so to speak. You know,
Too bad.
He's not good enough.
Yeah.
He tries hard, but he's got limitations.
Yeah.
Patrick is not anywhere near as good at the guard position as he is as a center. And I'll go back. I watched every game he played for Green Bay last year at center, and he played damn good football. You know, so and they were a playoff team. So I believe that they signed him to be a center. It wouldn't shock me that this is the week they make the change. It's just who's going to play left. You know, Cody's got to be out at least another couple of weeks. Who's going to be at left guard?
Mm-hmm.
And that's the big question. Who do you trust to play left guard right now?
Yeah, that's the thing. And a lot of people now that Alex Leatherwood has been activated for that 21-day period to determine whether he will be with the team the rest of the season or have to sit out the season during that 21 days. Do you think, and you're on record as saying this is a guy we got to mold and not rush into action. Do you think that because of the kind of urgent situation with the offensive line, the need for a left guard so that the team can move Patrick to center, do you think that Leatherwood might be forced into action before he's ready to go?
Well, you know what? That's up to Leatherwood.
Yeah.
And what he does in practice. You know, he was a really good player at left tackle at Alabama. And I don't think he's a left tackle in the NFL. I think he's a guard, but he's been playing on the right side when he was really good on the left side. So if you put him at left guard, that might be the best natural position for him. Mm-hmm. But this guy, you know, it's almost like Justin Fields. He's been criticized so much and been beaten down so much, and he's lost all confidence. And that's the toughest thing for a young player, especially if they're a high draft choice and they're not living up to expectations that you know, it's as bad as the fans feel. Just think of how the player feels when he, you know, unless he doesn't have any football character, you know, and a guy who doesn't have any football character, he's collecting the money and he doesn't give a shit. Okay. But the guy with football character, and most of the guys coming out of Alabama have really strong football character. They wouldn't have been recruited by Saban if they didn't. You know, this is tearing him apart. You know, this is a guy that wants to be a good player, but is he ready right now to become that good player? Mm-hmm. You know, and you've got to, you know, you might have to make have somebody else in there for a few weeks until Whitehair is back, because they really haven't said what Whitehair's in. Do you know what Whitehair's injury is? I don't recall.
I don't. Let me take a quick Google search here. But I thought it was an ankle, but probably somebody in the chat knows before I can find it.
He might have had a high ankle sprain or something, but, you know, those are 4 or 5 week injuries. They put him on IR, which meant he was going to be out at least 4 weeks. Mm-hmm. And then you can have that 3-week window to practice before you get reactivated. But the best line right now, to me, Leatherwood is a project for next year. Mm-hmm. They got him. They have his contract, and let's see what he can do, and then we'll put him in next year. Now, could they end up playing him next week? Damn right they could. Mm-hmm. But we got to see how they, you know, they got that many bye, and if you listen to everything Flu said, they're going through. They're doing basically what you do in the off season. You're going through everything. You're self-scouting. You're looking at your play calling, what's been successful, what hasn't been successful, looking at why, what are the breakdowns, looking at the individual players, what do they do good, what do they do bad, and then they get back today and start practice again. I don't know what the practice schedule is. I might have a practice today, then they're going to be off a day or two, and then come back for a regular game week starting Thursday because it's a Monday night game. but it's really about just setting the tone for the rest of the season. And being that their real bye is so late, this is probably a good thing that they had this mini bye. I thought it was unusual when I first looked at it that they play a Thursday night game and then they follow it up with a Monday. So you have like 11, 12 days off in between. Looking back, that's probably for this particular team a pretty good idea.
Yeah. Chris Watts asked the question, is this team improving? And I want to extend that question even further, because in these press conferences, Luke Getsy and Matt Eberflus have said about specifically Justin Fields that he is getting better. But we're not seeing that statistically. What do you see as a talent evaluator about Justin Fields' development? Is it sort of like the stock market right now, going up and down, up and down?
That's a good way of describing it. He is not confident in himself. That's my opinion from the way you watch him play. And who the hell was the commentator for the game last Thursday night? It was Aikman, right?
Yeah.
On Thursday. Yeah, there was Aikman's on Monday Night Football. It was Herbstreit, who was a fellow Ohio State guy, so he knows Justin well. And he pointed like there was he ended up running to his right when there was a throw, and it might have been Mooney coming across. Mm-hmm. He had the guy beat by about a yard and a half, and there was a throw that was there, and he saw it, but he wasn't comfortable making the throw. You saw that you could see watching that end zone tape that he saw the throw was there, but it was in his mind saying, can I make this throw or am I going to throw a pick? And so he decides to run or whatever, but it's like, no, hey, he's there. You got a receiver that's already got separation, put the ball out in front of him. Mm-hmm. And the defensive guy isn't going to make the play, and you get a first down. If you're accurate with the throw, I think that's the thing. He's just not secure with what he is seeing and being able to pull the trigger as quickly as he wants. Now, you could say that's slow processing. I don't necessarily think that's the right thing. I think it's. And I mentioned this before, and I might have wrote about it at Windy City Gridiron. He needs some success. Mm-hmm. Okay, and he needs success early in a game, and then that'll follow up with more success. And then you got to have a short memory when you make a bad play.
Yeah. It is disheartening because there's so many things around him that are not supporting him. And you mentioned the Velus Jones fumble. Even, when you get a special teams play like that, it just destroys any momentum. It destroys opportunities. It destroys the mojo of the team. There's just so many things that are not working.
That brings up a question. Okay, so what do you do with Velus Jones? Mm-hmm. So, I see comments on Twitter. They should cut him. Mm-hmm. Wow, the guy's a talented football player. And I remember this. This goes back to, late 80s. We drafted David Meggett, who became a great returner, Pro Bowl returner, and a part-time running back, kind of like a Tariq Cohen type guy. And, because he was little. Meggett was 5'7", 5'7.5", 195 pounds, 190 pounds, and he could run a sub 4.4. So we bring him to camp, and Bill was not all enthralled, going back to tell the story of when we drafted him, because he liked bigger guys, and this guy's 5'7" and 100, and at time coming out of college, he was about 185, and. I remember he looks at me and he goes, "This isn't a fucking peanut eating contest. This is the NFL." So he was kind of pissed at the pick. Then the next day he comes in and he goes, "Hey guys, I apologize. That must be a pretty good player. I got 3 calls to trade for him last night." Mm-hmm. We just looked at, no shit, Bill. What do you think? We don't do our homework? But then, fast forward to training camp. He couldn't catch a punt to save his life. And Bill just took him aside. I remember I was standing right there and he just put his arm around him. And Bill usually was a hard coach, but he knew the difference. He knew kids' personality or players' personality. He knew that some players you had to punch in the mouth, and there's other players that you had to give love to. So he just went up to Meggett. He goes, "Hey, look, just relax, catch the frickin' ball, and make a play. I'm not taking you out. So get the drops out now, and then make some plays when the season starts." So what he did is he tried to build up the kid's confidence, and it worked. I don't think he dropped a punt the rest of his career, but the first couple of days of camp, he must have dropped a half a dozen.
Yeah, and this whole thing about the breathing exercises, that I got to tell you, that worries me a little bit because it's reminiscent of Mitchell Trubisky, with the corporate leadership books that he was given, and he'd go up to the podium and basically recite what he's been learning in books. And I just when you get a franchise, when you draft what you hope is a franchise quarterback, I never ever have witnessed the quarterbacks talking about stuff that's outside of football, yoga, leadership books, and stuff like that. They just go out there and sling it. Does that concern you at all, that he is like searching for answers?
No, it doesn't, because players do that on their own anyway. Okay. They're looking for whatever it is to help them better. Whether it's yoga, it's a certain type of exercise. Some will do some martial arts stuff to use their hands better. A lot of it's done during the off season, but they're always looking for something. And so that doesn't. But here's the one thing, and I think I'm 100% right on here. It's the hardest position to play in this city, not other cities, this city, because for 100 years they've been dying for a good quarterback. True. And you're not allowed to make a mistake. And you're supposed to. He was drafted in the first round. They traded up to get him, and he's supposed to take him to a Super Bowl like in 2 years. That's not possible. Okay, yeah, Joe Burrow did with Cincinnati. It was a different situation. Don't forget, the stability of the front office and the team and the coaching staff in Cincinnati is a lot different than it was here. He played for one group of people, got drafted by one group, and played for that group for his rookie year. And now he's got a rookie year all over again here. So he's learning a new scheme. And I went back, I might have said it last week. Look what Russell Wilson is doing in Denver, besides nothing, having to play in this scheme.
Yeah. You're absolutely right about that. And so many people agree. Well, who am I to tell you that you're right? Of course you're right.
No, that's my opinion. And people don't want to agree with it. That's fine with me. I mean, I always fight back, but so what?
I know.
But, I'm not like I used to. I used to be a dickhead, but I'm getting older now.
Have you been told by someone in the family, "Hey, take it easy with that stuff"?
No.
Okay.
My daughter told me once, "Dad, there's a lot of people who hate you." And I go, "Yeah, what's your point?"
That's right.
I'll tell you what. Now, my daughters were happy yesterday because they're huge. They're both Bills season ticket holders.
Oh,
were they partying last night?
I bet that was a huge game. Well, let's talk a little bit about that game, but let me get a few questions out of the way first. Danger T takes us back to 2006 and says, when you lost that Super Bowl in 2006, when the Bears lost it, did you feel the team had a chance to go back? In your opinion, what was missing for a return to the Super Bowl?
I thought going in the game we were going to win. But that's me. I always think that. I think the difference in that game was Peyton Manning, being the quarterback that he is versus a guy who is still trying to grow. And then after that, he got hurt. And when he got hurt, that just destroyed any mobility that he had. But I think that was it, that if they don't have Peyton Manning, we win that game. Especially if they don't have Peyton Manning, that opening kickoff that Devin takes to the house, that destroys them.
Yes.
But that's the difference between, the good coach, damn good coach in Tony Dungy, damn good general manager in Bill Polian, and they had one of the best quarterbacks ever in the game in Peyton Manning. So I think that's the difference. But do you think that you still got a chance? Darn right, you think you still got a chance. And sometimes one of the mistakes you make, and sometimes it's good to bring in people from the outside to get their opinion of your football team, is that you overrate some of your own players.
Yeah.
You get a little bit too comfortable with your own guys, and so you might cut them some slack when you can't. You still got to be as competitive as hell, and they still got to fight for their jobs.
Yes. Falling in love with talent is like an Achilles heel for so many general managers, right?
Well, and part of it's you got personal relationships with them too.
Yeah.
Now, I didn't, as I said, I didn't know Thomas that well, but there's a bunch of other guys that I knew very, very well. And it's just there's certain guys that either gravitated towards me or I gravitated towards them, and they felt comfortable, coming up to my office and talking. Alex Brown was one. Alex would always come in my office. Graham, remember the safety? He because he was a Buffalo kid, he always would come up and talk. And so I had good relationships with some of those people, and I had a good relationship with Olin. But there's other people that, they go off in different directions. But you can't, it's impossible to, have a good relationship with 53 guys plus the guys on the practice squad. So, but there's some that you do, and you stay friends for life.
Indeed. Let's go to our next question. A lot of people in the chat room are talking about the improvement that they're starting to see regarding Kyler Gordon. You've been preaching that this guy's got all the tools to be a good cornerback, that we just have to be patient with him. I'd like you to talk about Kyler and the play of Kendall Vildor, somebody else that you
know how I was going to answer your question?
Huh?
Look what happened with Kendall Vildor.
There you go. Just be patient, please, fans.
It's not a hard word, but it's learning to play. And don't forget, Kyler Gordon left school a year early. He was a full-time starter 1 year at the University of Washington, part-time starter the year before that. The talent is there. He's a rookie, and I keep saying they were playing when Jalen Johnson was out there playing 3 rookies in the back. That's impossible. No team does that. And quarterbacks are going to lick their chops. They're going after somebody.
Yep.
And he's going to get beat, but he's number one. He's got a short memory. He's competitive as hell. He's got the athletic traits to do it. It's just putting it all together and learning from your mistakes. And that's what happened with Vildor. Vildor, I guarantee you 98.9% of the fans in Chicago want him run out of town after last year. Guess who's a solid part of the secondary right now?
Kendall Vildor.
Vildor.
Indeed. Homer Cutts wants to know, who do you think might be returning punts Monday night for the Chicago Bears?
Probably Pettis.
Dante Pettis. Boy.
Or
Ebner?
Marset Smith. Marset, whatever his name is. Smith Marset.
Yeah.
He did it a little bit at Minnesota, and he was a very good returner in college.
The Jazz.
But I think what Velus has got to do is he's got to earn the trust of the coaches again.
Yep.
And right now he doesn't have it, and rightfully so. And I'm sure he's down. The guy who's down on him more than anybody else is himself. You know, that he knows he cost this team a game. And, you know, you look at the replay. I remember when the first play in live action, it was like, oh, Jesus. And then you see the replay, he slipped. He lost his footing trying to catch the punt. And that happens sometimes. But it was just inopportune. Now, saying that, he's at like the 7-yard line. He shouldn't even been trying to field the kick to begin with.
Yeah.
You know, just let it go, and hopefully it doesn't go into the end zone, or it goes into the end zone, rather.
Yeah. And, you know, he's a 25-year-old guy, so you would wish that he had the maturity to make, you know, those decisions. But yeah, he's still a rookie, no matter what his age is. Jazz wants to know about whether you think that Flus's talk of accountability matches what we've seen so far on the field, meaning giving players more or fewer reps based on loafs.
Damn right. I love it. No, you got to hold players accountable. When you let players get away with things, it just keeps getting bigger and bigger and bigger. You know, you got to hold players accountable. But and speaking of accountability, and I did it in tweets last week, and then after this week's games, I feel even stronger about it. The league's got to start to holding referees accountable.
That's a topic that I hope to discuss tomorrow on the Dan and Alder show. We've reached out to a member of footballzebras.com, and we'll hopefully be spending some time talking about that topic. By the way, somebody in the chat room has just reported that Ian Rappaport is saying that the Arizona Cardinals have traded for Robbie Anderson. And the trade involves, let's see. Well, there's no details as of yet, but what do you think about that?
I did not, but there are people who want, you know, more to come here. Anderson, when Anderson pulled that stunt yesterday, and there had been stuff about him in the past. Okay, I wouldn't trade for that guy in a million years. Okay, that's the last thing this team wants is a bad guy coming into the locker room. No, he's trying to, you know, Flus is trying to build a culture of accountability. That kid has no accountability. Okay, and he's going to be a distraction. Yes, he's talented, but the last thing you want to do when team building is bringing the right people in your team. It's not only the talent, it's the right personality, the right kind of person.
I so with you, you know, particularly when you have got so many young players who could be influenced, you don't want to bring a veteran in who is going to lead somebody astray. There have been some reports, or a report I saw about that the Bears are interested in extending the contract for Darnell Mooney. That, of course, cannot happen until after the season. But Joe asked, what do you think his contract might be worth? Do you think that Darnell Mooney could be approaching that $20 million a year figure that so many receivers of his caliber are approaching? And with the new CBA money, the new cap money that's going to be hitting pocketbooks soon?
You know, I'm not trying to straddle the fence here, but I really don't have any idea, because the market changes year to year. And one thing the Bears got going in their favor is that he's still got another year on his contract.
Right.
Okay, so if you extend him now, you're doing him a favor, so he's got to give you a favor back. Okay, and so maybe it doesn't cost you quite as much. You give him some good bonus money. A lot of it has to do with the relationship between the player and the team. meaning the front office.
Mhm.
But he's a quality player. There's no question he's a quality player. It's what are they going to pay for him? He's got to, just based on what other guys have gotten in the league, he's got to get in that 17, 18 million range anyway.
Mhm.
And depending on what his numbers are this year, is he a true number one? I think that remains to be seen.
Mhm.
The true number one might not be here yet. I looked at Buffalo yesterday, and Stephon Diggs is obviously their number one, and that guy was only a 5th round draft choice, by the way.
Mhm.
And he's making number one money, not number one money by this year's standards, but by 2 years ago standards when he did his contract. But their number two is a guy who's also in his 3rd year, drafted in the same year as Mooney, Gabriel Davis from, I think, Central Florida is the school he went to. It might have been South Florida. But this guy, all he does is make freaking plays. Now, he missed some games because of an injury earlier in the year, but last week, I think he had 3 TDs. He had 1 yesterday. And he's going to be up. I think he got 1 more year, and then he's going to hit free agency. That guy's going to make a fortune when he hits free agency.
Mhm.
Because he's a big guy who can run. I mean, he's not a 4.3 guy. He's a 4.50, but he's 6'3". He's 215, 220 pounds. He catches everything. He's a good route runner. He's a number 2 in their offense, but he's a number 2, makes a lot of big plays. And the playoffs last year against Kansas City, he had 4 touchdowns in that game. Somebody put up his stats in games against Kansas City alone. He's got, like, in the last 3 games against Kansas City, he's got 7 touchdowns. And he's averaging like some ungodly number per catch.
Amazing. Back to the offensive line with this question about Riley Reef. Just in general, why is everyone wants to see Riley Reef in the starting lineup? Why do you think he is not? I know why.
Well, number one, he doesn't play that good on the right side. He's a natural left, and they like what they want Jones to play. And I don't blame them for that, because Jones is the future.
Yep.
Okay, so now Borum has been up and down. Could you put him on the right side and sit Borum a little bit? Yeah, you could do that.
Mm-hmm.
But I think Borum's got a bright future too. If you compare this point of his career with other guys playing in the league at the right tackle position, he's not a whole lot different.
Mm-hmm.
It's with some of these guys, it's getting them the experience, and that experience becomes invaluable. So, they got him. They actually got him at a good number, because he's not going to play. For him to make money, he had to play X amount of snaps.
Mm-hmm.
And right now that isn't happening. And, Schofield, there's a guy mentioned Schofield here. He didn't look good in the preseason. He looked awful. So that's why he got let go. But they also, you go back to the old adage, if he's on the team for game 1, his salary's guaranteed. But if you bring him back after game 1, then it's week to week, which is exactly what they did. They caught him and brought him back.
Yep.
He can hold the fort. I mean, it wouldn't shock me if he ends up being the left guard until Cody comes back and they put Patrick at center. I think they're going to make a change on the line. I'm just trying to, read between the lines from what Flus was saying when he had his presser on Friday.
Mm-hmm. All right, let's get back to a couple of questions from about yesteryear. Mr. Englewood starts with, did Dusty Dvorak start in the Super Bowl that year? What is Greg's opinion of Dusty, who is now a really popular sportscaster and analyst for college football?
What a great. Now that's one of the guys I was close with. So and I love the guy, and we remain friends. He's had me on his radio show a few times. You should see Dusty what he looks like now compared to what he looked like Conan the Barbarian when he was here. Now he weighs about 230 versus 305. Dusty was a role player. He started some games, but he played within the rotation. He probably played 45 to 55% of the snaps. He was a wild man. He had a foot problem. And when we drafted him, we didn't know about it. Here's an interesting thing about the combine is that when you go to the combine, they have the combine people and the teams have your medical records that come from the school. He had a foot problem that was never disclosed.
Oh, really?
So when it's not disclosed, then you don't, because when you get to the combine, the first thing you do, let's say you've had a shoulder problem and a knee problem, as soon as you get to Indy, they send you off to have an MRI and x-rays so that when you have your medical exam the next day, because that's the first thing you go through is the medical, when you have that, they've already got the pictures taken care of and they can look at it and go from there. So nobody knew about a foot injury, so nobody looked at it.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not just talking about us. I'm talking about the whole league. And, in fairness, Oklahoma was kind of famous for that. There was stuff that guys had. In fact, I think it was Adrian Peterson. Everybody knew he had one knee surgery. Reality is he had two. And so, but it's just that they weren't being totally honest with, what they were telling the pro teams about some of their players.
Interesting. And does that still happen today where some teams are they're trying to push their players from their schools so much that they aren't upfront with scouts who are coming in for visits?
Well, that's an interesting question, because I believe when we were working the scouting department here, we had the same guys in the same area year after year after year. Mm-hmm. And the main reason is they build these relationships with the coaches. And you got to you found people when you make your school call that you could trust.
Mm-hmm.
The pro liaison might be full of shit when you talk to them. And sometimes it takes you a year or two to find that out. But you've got to dig when you go to the schools and find out who you can trust. And a lot of times it's like the academic advisor or, the assistant trainer. I got a dog coming in to see me here.
It's his house. He can go wherever he wants.
That's right. So it could be along those lines. And he, once you really feel comfortable with finding the right people to get you the info, then you can find out. But some of the medical stuff that comes from the training room, and it's, are they going to put down on paper everything that happened to a player since the day he arrived on campus? And that's really, really important. And there's some schools that just don't give you honest information.
Yeah.
And so you can have some hidden things that you don't really know about.
Interesting. Bears Country Podcast, Mr. Shorty. By the way, they got a fresh show tonight at 7 p.m. Central with Dan Aguirre, and Cliff Victoria is going to be back after being away for a couple of shows because of the turmoil down in Florida. But he asked, how did Lovey have so much to say in the drafting of Cedric Benson? Why didn't Angelo override him?
Well, at that time, you go back and it was the 2005 draft, I think.
Mm-hmm.
running backs were still a premium position when it came to the draft. And if you recall that draft, there was 3 running backs went in the top 5. There was no question that he was worthy of being at that time being drafted in that spot. But I don't think Lovey was as sold as some other people were on Thomas Jones. We knew he was a good player, but you look at the shelf life of a running back, and then you say, okay, I firmly believe you got to draft a running back every other year. Because of that it doesn't have to be a high round pick. Mm-hmm. And now you history shows us now you can get guys in the later rounds, day 2, day 3, that are going to be quality NFL backs. Mm-hmm. But I think you gotta bring one in at worst every other year, because you got to keep replenishing. Mm-hmm. Because how many, it's a big question for the Bears. Are they going to re-sign Montgomery to another contract? And a lot of times when you do that, it ends up backfiring on you.
Yeah.
Because, all of a sudden, he might give you one good year in that contract. And when a running back starts to fall off the cliff, it's not like he's going downhill slowly. Boom. He's like on the express elevator from the top floor to the bottom. So that's why teams are really cautious about doing that second big contract. If it's me, I try to do no more than 3 years. But the agent, he wants longevity. Oh, yes. So now you get into a security longevity. Now you get into a problem. So that'll be an interesting development. It won't happen until after the season. So sometime between January 1st and March, whether they're able to do him at what price. They've got 2 young guys that got some talent. The one difference, like with Khalil, is that as good as a runner he is, he can't pass protect yet.
Yeah, not yet.
And that's what Montgomery does really well, is pass block. And he can't be your bell cow until he learns how to become a better pass blocker.
Mm-hmm. Last question from that era, and it's from Mr. Englewood. Did Jerry Angelo and Lovie Smith want to get rid of all of Mark Hatley and Dick Duran's guys, like this current regime wants to kind of eliminate the Poles, Nagy guys?
Another interesting question, because I was here then.
Mm-hmm.
Number one, when Lovey came in, we were already here 2 years or 3 years. We came in June 2001, and then after the 2003 season, we fired Dick and brought in Lovey in January 2004. But Lovey was bringing in an entirely new scheme. Mm-hmm. So we replaced a lot of, and we've talked about this several times, especially along the defensive line. We replaced that, except for Alex Brown. Was all new on the defensive line. And then we, drafted some guys. We had drafted Tillman, I think, the year before. Briggs was the year before. So Briggs was going into a second year. Tillman was going into a second year. So we had some of those guys, but it was more a change of scheme. Mm-hmm. Now, and I can't remember all these guys' names. We had the running back when I first got here. He had a real good rookie year from Michigan.
Oh, Anthony Thomas, the A-Train?
Yeah, and he was a stiff in the hip, straight line runner. Mm-hmm. Okay, so he had a real, and I was with the Giants when he got drafted here. But I remember going to Michigan. I didn't have, I had like a 4th round grade on the guy, and I think they took him in in the second I thought he was stiff in the hips, he had limitations, and I ended up being right. And then the funny story was that 01 draft. So before we came, they took the receiver from Michigan, and I can't remember his name either. And he had a foot problem. But I remember Jerry and I I'm with the Giants, Jerry's with Tampa, and we're at the Michigan Pro Day. And what was that receiver's name? Do you remember what the hell his name was?
Oh, gosh.
He didn't do a damn thing in the league. Yeah. And they took him in the first round. He's a big
David Terrell.
Yes, David Terrell. Okay. So we're at Michigan, and Michigan had a nice indoor facility, and all the players on the team are running their 40s and doing their drills in the indoor facility. Mm-hmm. Next to the indoor facility was an indoor track. David Terrell wanted to run his 40 on the track, and because he knew it was faster, and he's just being a prima donna about it. So we had to go, and he refused. We kept telling him, do you know what happens when you run on a track? We add to your time. In other words, because the track is a faster surface, mm-hmm. and we transpose it to grass, because grass was the slowest. Field turf now and grass are pretty much the same. They might be within 100th of a second of each other. But with the old AstroTurf or with a track, if a guy runs a 4.35 on a track, we're giving him a 4.50, because that's how much faster those hard track surfaces are than running in grass or on field turf. So we kept telling him, your time's going to get adjusted. I don't care. I want to run. So it was like, we have to wait till everybody's done with that workout, then go over into the other field house next door so he could do his stuff there. And then the shoes weren't right, and he has to go back to the locker room to get the right shoes, and he's got like track shoes on. So he tried, and he still didn't run that great. And I remember saying, because this is a funny thing, again, Jerry's at Tampa and I'm at New York. We had no idea. Neither one of us had any idea we were going to be in Chicago the next year, or a couple months later, really. All right. And I put my arm around Jerry. I go, hey, big dog. I go, aren't you glad we're not going to have to put up with this asshole?
Oh, that's hilarious.
First day here, Jerry goes, we spoke too soon.
That is hilarious. And here's a funny one. Mr. Englewood claims that David Terrell got busted running a cannabis trap house across the alley from him on 39th and Berry. True story. So not only did he want to run on grass, but he also wanted to sell grass.
No, he wanted to run on a track. He didn't want to run on grass.
Oh, that's right. That's right. I messed up the joke.
But and then it was illegal. Now it would be no big deal.
That's right.
But yeah, and he had a foot problem. He had a kept breaking his fifth metatarsal, I believe it was.
Right.
And for a receiver, that could be a bitch of an injury. Man. And it doesn't sound like it is, but it just, for some reason, it can, unless a surgery is perfect, it just can be a bitch. And, so he never really lived up to expectations, but I think we knew it. We inherited him because they had taken him in April and we came in June. But I think we knew it right from the start. You saw that, he was a prima donna, that he thought he was bigger than the team type of guy. And that turned out to be exactly right.
Unbelievable. All right, to finish the show, I want to play a quick game of true or false. I'm going to make a statement. You tell me whether it's true or false and add some explanation as to why you feel it's true or false. First one, Buffalo Bills are going to win the Super Bowl.
I hope so.
So that's true. They look like the best team in the NFL, and I'm not going to say by far, but holy cow, man, that team looks great.
Their best chance to win the Super Bowl was at their first one. Super Bowl 25 against us, the Giants, and they missed the field goal.
Oh gosh.
So, but there was a funny story because I lived in Buffalo. My whole family was in Buffalo, and we're at the game, and so the day after the game, I'm flying back to Buffalo, and I'm at the Buffalo airport down in the luggage area waiting for my bag. And because I had gone down to Tampa early, I was that particular week. It was during the Gulf War, and there was only 1 week between the league championship game and the Super Bowl.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I don't know why, but that was the case. So anyway, I ended up going down to Tampa like on a Monday, and then my family came down on Thursday. But I had a big Giants duffel bag. So it's blue and red with the Giants and the big line underneath it, the big Giants logo. And so that's coming through the luggage carousel at the Buffalo airport the day after the game. That poor bag got the shit kicked out of it. by fans, and all I could do was laugh. I mean,
yeah, right.
If I didn't laugh, I might have got killed. But
indeed. All right, true or false? Aaron Rodgers will never play in another playoff game in his career.
I would say that's false.
Really? I was going to say true.
Really? Oh, I tell you what, he took a beating yesterday.
Yeah, it looks
awful. He didn't look like he wanted to play either.
Yeah. That Packers team has a lot of talent. When you look at the talent they have on defense, to me, it's incredible they're not playing better. So Joe Barry, I believe, is the defensive coordinator, so he's probably on the hot seat. But that offense looks awful without Devontae Adams, really awful. And that pass rush yesterday that Rodgers faced, boy, I was going to say poor Aaron.
He took some big hits.
Oh my goodness!
And there are people joking around before they actually did say he's not going to make it through this game, and he didn't. But they just, when the Jets went up by 17, they just yanked him. Said, hell with it.
Mm-hmm. And then finally, my last true or false is the Bears are going to win on Monday night against the New England Patriots. What say you?
Right now, I'm not feeling good about that, but I want to see what the changes are. The only problem is we're not going to know what the changes are till next Monday night.
Exactly.
They're not going to tell you.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
I mean, I like that they're going to have that long break,
mm-hmm.
and and probably install some new things, but don't. And the little sideshow to this game is Belichick wins that game. He breaks George Halas's record. Don't you think he wants to do that against Chicago? And I think he's the best coach in the game. So, I'm going to. The next two games are tough. The schedule maker wasn't good. 4 out of 5 games on the road at this part of the schedule, and then the next 2 are tough ones with New England and Dallas.
That second string quarterback for the Patriots, Zappe, is looking pretty good. He's putting up some.
Yeah,
they're calling me again.
Yeah.
Looking really good. So in any case, that's our show for today. Greg and I will be back here probably on Tuesday after the game. If not Tuesday, then Wednesday. If not Wednesday, then Thursday. We'll let you know on social media. The best way to stay on top of what we're doing here at the Barroom Network is to subscribe to the YouTube channel or just download our podcast, iTunes, Spotify, you name it, we're there. Greg, any final words for your fans?
No, let's just, I keep saying it and they don't want to hear it, but you gotta be patient. I laugh. I see some of these comments that I just laugh, the overreaction. And then some of these Twitter heroes with some of the suggestions that they should do. And, 2 or 3 years ago, I would have said, are you out of your, and now I just, let them say what they want.
Yeah, it is. When you're going through something like this, and again, Danny Shimon, your pupil, when you were teaching your class on draft scouting, said it really well on Bear Football is we should have known that this was what we were in for. This is a rebuilding team, and it's going to be painful when you're making so many changes in scheme, in player personnel, and so forth. We shouldn't be complaining. We should be preaching patience, just like you've been saying. So he learned well from you, Greg.
Well, there's one thing. It's not like they're getting blown out.
Right. They're in every game.
No, and like I say, a couple different bounces of the ball, and they're 4-2.
Mm-hmm.
Then these guys are crazy what Dayball's doing in New York, and Dayball's doing a hell of a job in New York. He's also got a quarterback in his 4th year.
Mm-hmm.
And that
and
makes
you were. I'm sorry to interrupt. As you said earlier in the show, you were for Daboll winning this Bears job.
Oh, well, then I'm not going to tell you one thing I did, but I mean, I'd tell you off the top. I'm not going to put it on the air, but yeah, no, that's the guy I wanted. That was my number one guy. I did not know. I knew about Flus. I felt a lot better when I talked to Chris Ballard about it, and since he's been here, I can honestly say I don't disagree with what he's doing. I totally agree with what he's doing. He's holding players accountable. He's running things in a very professional way. If you listen to his press conferences after the game, and like especially the day after the game, and then during the week, he always deals with the positive. He's not he throws out the negative.
Yeah,
he deals with the positive, and that's the exact opposite of what the media and sports talk. That's all they talk about here is the negative, which drives me batty. But that is what it is. But he knows he's got a bunch of young players, 14 rookies on this team. I've never been around a team that had 14 rookies.
Yeah. I checked a month ago, and I think the highest number for an NFL team was 11. And then the average was like 4 or 4 to 6. So yeah, it is quite a bit.
Yeah, and so it's a matter of teaching these guys how to play, how to become pros, and in the long run, it's going to pay off.
Mm-hmm. Jordan says that it's something that he has said the Bears would always be a tough out. My issue is that the Bears are losing and underachieving in the same games Daboll and New York Giants are pulling out. And as I told you, Jordan, in a tweet, is you're talking about a quarterback who has about 30 more starts under his belt than Justin Fields. And you're talking about a team that had 14 draft picks in the top 116, no, not 14, but they had more than double the amount of draft picks in the first 4 rounds than the Bears had. So to state that they started off equally is not true. The Giants had more resources. And so the comparison between what the Giants are doing and the Bears are doing is different.
Their starting tackles are both, one's a top 5 and the other's a top 7, top 8 pick. I mean, they got some people at key positions. Now, granted, Gettleman made some mistakes in drafting. I don't think Joe Shane made any mistakes this past year, but they've got some good guys too, and they got some decent players in free agency. That their approach was a little bit different, and I think these guys came in knowing that they were going to strip this franchise down.
Yep,
they were going to take it apart and build it back up. That was not what they were going to do in New York. Yep. So it was a whole different philosophy. So to compare the two is really comparing to apples and oranges. And it's to me, it's just ludicrous that people want to talk about it because they're not the same team and it's not the same situation.
Right. I mean,
it's how they wanted to handle things. And I think they're going about it the right way. They made too many mistakes here over the previous 5 years. They got themselves in a hell of a cap hole, and for going forward, they had to clean that up, and he's cleaned it up in 1 year. Sometimes you can't do that, but in order to do that, you're going to get punched in the mouth a few times.
Right. J2K, who has been very critical of Poles' approach to building the offensive line, is asking you, could pose, perhaps started with rebuilding the offensive line instead of the defensive backfield?
Well, that's a good question, but it's you gotta go with your board. Okay, so I don't know what their board looked like.
Mm-hmm.
If they had a tackle or a couple tackles there, or a guard and a tackle or something like that, rated a lot higher than a safety in a corner, maybe they do.
Mm-hmm.
But I know one thing: your best success to have a good secondary is to draft it, because you got to overspend to get them in free agency.
Mm-hmm. Yep. All right, let's leave it there. I mean, we could talk for another hour just on this topic alone, and we'll devote more time to this topic as the weeks go on, and we'll see at the end of the season what the Giants. By the way, kudos to the Giants for them to pull off that game against the Ravens yesterday was fantastic effort, and I applaud that organization, and I applaud Brian Daboll, and that Giants defense has just been so surprising to me, and what they did there is incredible. So hopefully we can say some nice things about the Bears next week. So with that, I will say goodbye and let people know that Bears Country Podcast is live at 7 p.m. Central tonight, and then Dan and Aldo tomorrow night, and all sorts of Bears programming the rest of the week. Greg, Gabriel, you are the absolute best, and my very best to Thomas Jones. Make sure you check out his new Amazon Prime series that drops tomorrow called The Life After. And that's it for tonight. Take care, guys.
See you later.
Thank you.